Star Wars Outlaws has a new creative director, and the developers are promising some major updates in the near future that aim to fix up the problems with gameplay. But will it be enough? I've been pretty harsh on this game, and not without good reason. It missed a lot of marks for me as a player, and the fact that I have no desire to pick it up again really says a lot. It was hyped up as the next big thing for several years, and expectations were pretty high. In my last video about Outlaws, I talked about why the game failed, and I tried to offer more constructive feedback instead of just saying the game is woke, therefore it's bad. The major points I brought up was the fact that a scoundrel doesn't quite tap into the power fantasy as strong as a Jedi does, which actually got some pushback. I was surprised that a lot of you were really into the whole scoundrel thing, which is cool. But what was basically universally agreed on was my other point, that Star Wars as a brand is limping on its last leg. People just don't care about this franchise anymore, and a big part of why is the mishandling of it by Lucasfilm. I'm currently taking bets on how quickly the new trilogy that just got announced gets cancelled due to quote-unquote creative differences. Outlaws had an uphill battle on release given this lack of enthusiasm around Star Wars in general. Had this game released even 5 years ago, it probably would have been received way better. Not saying it would have been a smash hit, but it could have at least ridden the high that came with the games, TV shows, and movies that came out around that time. Battlefront 2 was at its peak in 2019. The Mandalorian almost single-handedly revived Star Wars for those first 2 seasons. Had this game dropped in the middle of that, I think it would have sold way better. It's just too little too late, and it goes to show how timing is a really important factor. I think Outlaws can do well in the long run. It's not a complete disaster, and there are some redeeming qualities like Sabacc and basically the entirety of Tatooine. And now with the new creative director, Ubisoft clearly wants to keep improving on it and at least try to make it that long-term success. They say as much in this community update, introducing the new creative director, and it made me feel a little fuzzy inside knowing they watch my videos. From before launch and continuing into post-launch, we've been gathering data from and listening to you. This takes place not only formally through our analytics, user tests, reviews and media feedback, bug reporter, crash reports, and other mechanisms, but also informally when we see your YouTube videos and Reddit, Discord, or other social media posts. We deeply care about your experience with the game and use all the data and feedback possible to see the friction points you're encountering, what you're enjoying, and where we can further improve certain elements that matter most to you. Your feedback has already resulted in 3 title updates in which we focused on fixing some of your biggest concerns, like bugs, reducing major friction points in key missions, particularly around stealth, adjusting the speeder camera and collision, and much more. That being said, there are 3 key areas in which we're looking to improve the game even further. The first key area of improvement to the game is combat, where we see a real opportunity to add more depth and excitement to the experience, further rewarding your tactics and precision. Our second key area is stealth, which is not only about improving the readability and consistency of enemy detection, but also providing choice in how you want to approach each encounter. Finally, our third key area of focus is centered around the character controls, which means improving the reliability of cover, increasing the responsiveness of climbing and crouching, and generally improving consistency of controls overall. You can expect to see more details about how we'll be celebrating and embracing player choice more than ever before, whether it's sneaking through encounters, going in blasters blazing, or everything in between. All of this will culminate in the release of Title Update 1.4, which will release on November 21st alongside the Steam launch and first story pack, Wildcard. I get the impression they really want this game to be a good one, and although there are some aspects that simply cannot be changed, like the main character Kay and her place in the story, gameplay is one of those things they absolutely can improve. Stealth mechanics were something that really turned me away from this game. One of the things I would try to manipulate in my playthrough were the smoke canisters and explosive barrels that you can sometimes find in the missions. I would use Nix to detonate those barrels across the room, with the hope that the enemies that were in my way would go in the direction of the explosion and clear my path, but instead they would just become alerted to my presence and start making a beeline toward me, which completely defeated the purpose of detonating that barrel. Then you had some of the more well-known gameplay issues, like how the speeder would buck you off for running into a pebble, and some of the more egregious glitches, like falling through the map. But like they said, they plan to make more fixes, with the biggest update coming with the Steam release. I'm actually really interested in what the Steam numbers are going to look like for this game. I hope for the developers' sake that it does well on the platform. To be honest, I think Ubisoft kind of shot themselves in the foot by overpricing the upgraded editions. It was obvious they were trying to funnel players to the Ubisoft Plus subscription service. I mean, $19 to play this game is a lot more enticing than $140. But I'm not convinced enough people picked up Ubi Plus. It feels like they're admitting defeat by bringing it to Steam. I'm actually looking forward to the next update though, especially since that story pack is releasing at the same time, so it'll be worth coming back if only for that. Since that last video I made talking about why Outlaws failed, I've done some reflecting. Gameplay changes are great, but they won't really do much to make up for what I perceive as a lack of soul. I will always say that Star Wars is at its absolute best when it deals with family, and what the concept of family means to us. Luke Skywalker redeeming Vader at the end of Episode 6 is so powerful because here we have one of the most evil people in the galaxy, yet he's able to come back to the light because of his son, the only person who believes in him. The Mandalorian and Grogu resonates for that exact same reason. It's the dynamic between a father and a son. I know not everybody's into it, but Star Wars Rebels is one of my all-time favorite stories, and it's because of the relationship between the Ghost Crew. They're a dysfunctional family that they all chose to be a part of, and it just works. Same thing with the Mantis crew in the Jedi series. They're a family. You care about these characters because the characters care about each other. Now, taking a look at Outlaws, I can really only think of one or two instances where I felt that same way about Kay and her crew. Very minor spoiler alert for the story in case you haven't played it yet. There's a part in the game where Kay gets separated from Nix, and the performance by Humberly Gonzalez is fantastic. You can really hear the panic and desperation in her voice as she's trying to save her little buddy. It was heartfelt, and it actually made me care. It was one of the few times the game had some soul, and I was really invested. Even more so than when Cal gets separated from BD-1 in Fallen Order. It's basically the same plot point, but in this case, Outlaws did it a little better in my opinion. Outside of that, there really isn't any sense of family between these characters. They're just a random crew who has to work together to get the job done, instead of a family who tries to take care of each other along the way. ND1 is a great character, his arc is very strong, but I feel like his relationship with Kay goes from 0 to 100, and it all happens toward the end of the game, and it just feels rushed. That's really how the relationships between all these characters feel, and I think it's because of the way the plot makes you sort of collect the crew as you go, and once you've got everybody, you're just automatically in the endgame. Compare it to Jedi, where the Mantis crew is basically all together from the start, with some exceptions, and you have the entire length of the game to get invested in these relationships and connect with the characters. I'm not looking it up on purpose just to prove my point. I do not remember the names of any of the crewmates we pick up in Outlaws, with the exception of Waka, because again, he was there at the start. His arc ends around the halfway point of the game, but that entire time leading up to it, it felt like him and Kay were developing a real friendship, and that was good. And it's not like Outlaws doesn't try to tap into family dynamics. Kay's mom is a central character at the end of the game, but even that relationship feels hollow. So hollow that I forgot about it until I started writing this script. Narratively, the game just fails to tap into the concept of family, and I think that's a big part of why it feels soulless. The environments are gorgeous, the details in the world are fantastic, but I'm going to use the same analogy I used to describe The Last Jedi. A turd that's spray-painted gold is still a turd at the end of the day, and no amount of glitter can cover up the smell. Kind of a harsh analogy. I don't think Outlaws is nearly as bad as The Last Jedi, but I think it's still valid. There's too much spectacle here that tries to cover up a lack of substance. I honestly wish the best for this game. I don't like bashing it or anything else that comes out of Star Wars. I grew up with the franchise and it means a lot to me, so it's not like I take pleasure in criticizing it. I've just been jaded and apathetic. It's hard to care about it when it feels like the people making it don't care and are more focused on inserting activist agendas instead of just telling good stories. I hope we can have a return to form in the future. I look forward to the day I get excited about Star Wars again. But that is all I've got in this video, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope it was worth your time. If it was, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Check out one of these other videos on the channel, and until next time, this has been Star. Keep shining, baby.